Uh, Coffee. All right. Woo! We made it to Saturday. I'm a little bit grumbling, but hey, we're here. So, I have the coffee, and it's oh, I never know what to say when I start these things. You think I would script something out, but I don't necessarily want to. I, every time I script something out and then I read from it, I can tell it's a script, and ultimately I want to be able to do this in a comfortable way where it's like I don't necessarily think about it. I just do it and I just be it, and I can just go at it. And I'm sure I'm gonna. I already have a bunch of videos of me just kind of rambling on and on and on. Um, but hey, that's why we practice. We have to keep going at it. We have to keep pushing, even though we get like, I mean, when you record things about yourself, when you record your voice or you record your video or somebody's recording you with either a phone or a video camera, it's like this other self this other self comes up as a shield where we've got to like kind of be this ideal projected self, but then we just come across as completely fake and acting. So it's I mean, at least this is something that's really, really difficult for I've seen in my generation and Gen X and Boomers and all of us, and even some millennials. Not as much millennials, but Zoomers have it like are getting it like that. But just being able to have a camera face and to be able to just, there is no there that shield or face doesn't come up, or at least isn't as obvious. Oh, I don't know if that makes sense. But we are here on a Saturday morning, and I'm working, kinda, and just hanging out and seeing if anybody shows up. I know I see one viewer. My dad usually shows up, so of course, when the parent shows up, it's like again, it's like the camera. It's like this face of like I've got to be proper, I got to be good, I don't want to embarrass anybody. The whole family line is dependent upon this one moment. Don't, as the Good Shepherd's prayer. Please God, don't let me fuck this up. Who was his name? Andrew Shepard? Shepard. What was his name? Shepard, Shepard, Shepard. Shepard. The astronauts. Prayer. There's two Shepherd's Prayer. There is a Shepherd's Prayer that comes from the Bible, but there's also what is known as Shepherd's Prayer. And it's not necessarily Alan Shepard, not yeah, Alan Shepard was his name. And what is known as Shepard's Prayer is attributed to Mercury 7 astronaut Alan B. Shepard, the first American in space. John Glenn is the first American to orbit the planet, but Alan Shepard is the first American to go into space. He basically just went up, crossed the barrier, and came back down. John Glenn is the first astronaut that made a loop around the planet. So it is usually quoted as, "Dear Lord, please don't let me fuck up," although Shepard claimed the words to be, "Don't fuck up, Shepard." So basically, when he was sitting in the astronaut capsule and being ready to be blasted off into space, and everybody's camera from all over America was like TVs were watching in and they were feeding it live. His quote was, "Dear Lord, please don't let me fuck this up." I think that comes from the movie The Right Stuff, and then what he really said is, "Don't fuck up Shepard." So anyway, since then it's become known as Shepard's Prayer. So, um, just a little Gemini astronaut space history for you. So, anyhow, what are we working on today? So, just a real quick about what all of this is about, why this video exists, is one, practice for me learning how to stream and teach live and try to talk about the processes of what I do, or just, what I do as an artist, what I'm working on, and, just basic stuff like that. So, Saturdays and Sunday mornings, I come with my coffee. It's usually this is normally my practice time, like Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings, where I get up, I grab coffee, and I just sketch on something, or I'm working on a series of something that's helping me prepare for another project. This project, Forever is Fleeting, is the one that's kind of taken on a life for this year. We started this back in January, and I think this is like the 14th. This might be the 14th or the 15th episode. I'm not sure. But anyhow, the idea is I just experiment and create a sort of frame like you see here. And what it is I'm practicing for working on the aesthetic for the graphic novels that I am trying to write. This is actually a scene from one of the graphic novels, and it doesn't really have a name yet. It's just, this is one of the characters that have appeared in my paintings. I've got a bunch of characters that over the course of 25 years have started to appear in my paintings. There are what are called the two children. They first appear in my painting, The Akashic Wormhole, which is this painting. So this is where they first appeared in this painting right here, which is called Akashic Wormhole. And basically, these two children appeared in this painting, and they're talking to a librarian. And this is a big library, sort of like a multi-dimensional library that exists like through multiple universes and lives and times and all kinds of stuff. So, they first appeared here. They then appeared in this painting, which is Burst of Spring, and they appeared as if that last painting that you saw peeking into this painting. So as you all know, like, my paintings all sort of are interconnected, and they all have characters that cross the streams. And so this was the second painting that they appeared in. This is actually the fourth painting they appeared in. Here they are dancing. And this is the third painting they appeared in, where they're about to be eaten by the Kraken, or Cthulhu, or baby Cthulhu. And they're getting ready. So they go on, they apparently go on adventures. So anyhow, this is the girl character. Her name is Ajna, and this is a scene from her origin story. And she has an origin story called The Family Tree, which I'm not going to go into the specifics of, but basically introduces her character. The other character is Yosef, Yosef, and he's just another main character that partners up with this character, and they're actually from two different timelines. So Ajna is kind of early 21st century, and Yosef is sort of mid 25th century. Um, and he's got a whole entire story, and he comes from a world that's just starting to pick itself up out of the ashes of beating itself up. So, um, yeah, so, oh, by the way, the book in this scene, the book that Ajna is reading is the book that is on the pedestal in Akashic Wormhole. So if you're familiar with the Akashic Wormhole, my Akashic Wormhole painting, the book she is reading, sitting there on the swing, is the book that is on this pedestal, which is the book that is missing out of this collection of books that are coming down through the clouds inside of the library. So, um, that's the connection between that painting. So, and in this scene that you see here, I'm going a little bit different this week. Last week was, we were experimenting with, oh, I erased them already. Oh, wait, no, I didn't. So this was ultimately the outcome that we did last week, minus the line work that I've added on it. And that was taken from a photo. This was the photo. And basically turned it into last week's episode. So, which this photo also turned into another painting, but that's another story. So many stories. But this scene is actually bigger than what you see. So this scene of her sitting on the swing reading the book is from a bigger scene, and that scene is this. So this is her, and then this is the house that she grew up in, and this house that you see here on this tree stump is, his name is just House, all right, and kind of has Baba Yaga's hut sort of trope to it. I'm gonna kind of call Baba Yaga's hut a trope, and basically it's just a magical character. It's just a magical entity that follows along with a magical character that is connected and is somehow the source of the magic. And actually, what this character is actually will have some chicken legs and follows Ajna on her adventure. Is one of the characters that follows her on her early adventures in her origin story. But basically, the house, her family has lived in this house for 7 generations. And up in that attic area where you see the tower, the witch's tower, there's a whole sort of Book of Shadows room up in there. But anyhow, the family has been in this house and was built by this family, that over the generations, the spirits of the family have percolated into the house and now have sort of morphed, and the house has a spirit of itself that only Ajna can connect to. So Ajna connects to the house, and the house tells her the stories of her family, but then also just other stories as well, or stories that the family has told it. But then it projects itself through this one character, which follows her around. So it's a multifaceted magical character that is going to follow her around. And so that's a little bit the story behind her. I guess I can tell you a little bit. I mean, I guess it would be good practice to kind of go over her origin story, or like the family tree. So, a little bit of a story time here. Ajna, who this is her favorite. This is like her sanctuary spot. This tree, and in her origin story, which is called the family tree, it's sort of a connection to her family line's magic and her magic, and she's at this point in her life, she's has this is on this day. I don't know if it's this day because this is a different story than the actual origin story, but it's her birthday and something special is happening and she doesn't know what it is, and something special is being prepared for her. But she goes and she sits in this tree while everything's getting ready, and she's just told to kind of just go, just there's all kinds of preparations for the party happening. So she's sitting in this tree, or she in this this is why it's probably good practice to tell this story, because I have to practice telling this story. So Ajna is sitting in the tree, and all of a sudden, she starts to hear drums. All right? And she climbs up higher in the tree. I think in this scene, she's not actually sitting in the swing. But she climbs up higher into the tree because she has another area that she sits up into the tree, and she hears drums and she's starting to see what's happening, and it's just this is like boom, boom, and then like this little, but it's got this steady rhythm to it, and it's she's never heard this before. This is a new sound in her neighborhood, and she climbs up the tree. And this is an old road. It's an old path. It's not used as much anymore because it's an older path. There's faster roads that can be used now. But so she's looking at it, and coming up around the corner, it seems like a marching band is coming. And this marching band starts coming around, and it turns out to be a Civil War regiment. And it's sort of Civil War soldiers that are walking down the street, and they happen to be Confederate soldiers in this story, and they're heading off to the Battle of Atlanta, or what's going to become the Battle of Atlanta, and so they're basically going to defend Atlanta. However, so she's climbing up in the tree, and she's seeing these soldiers, and it turns out like she's realizing that they're ghosts. So there's this ghost regiment of Civil War soldiers that are marching down her road, and she's just like, what's going on? And up to this point, she is starting to realize that she sees things that other people don't. So she's starting to come into her magic. And at this point, there's just been a lot of secrecy. I'm trying to get some more coffee in her family because she's starting to ask her mother and her grandmother and her father and her grandfather certain questions, and they're not giving her straight answers. So anyhow, on this special day, which is her birthday, these Civil War ghosts are walking, and she sees them, and she's just looking at them, and there's one of them that looks familiar, and she starts staring at them, and then all of a sudden this ghost stares at her and starts looking at her while they're walking, and they make eye contact. So they they're like that's that sort of eye communication happening. Like you're connecting with this being that's a ghost that is coming at you down the road. And if you see the road, they're not shown in this picture, but they're coming over this bridge, and they're coming down, and she's like kind of up on a tree trying to see them closer, see them better. And they make the eye contact, and all of a sudden she gets shot, like the shock. It's like somebody sees you spying, like it's anyhow, she falls out of the tree and hurts herself. And kind of a little bit passes out. This it's overwhelming for her, and she just kind of loses consciousness for just a little bit. And so she then wakes up in basically the living room with her mother, and she's on the couch, and she's there with her grandmother, and she wakes up, and she's basically on a chaise lounge in the sunroom, and she's coming to, and the Civil War soldier, is in the living room with them, and it's weird because this soldier is real now, but like in the living room with her mother and her family, and they're all tending to her, and basically the way that the story goes is the soldier, what she tells is the soldier saw her fall, came up, tried to help her, ran out of the regiment. So the soldiers kept moving. He just wasn't even thinking. He just broke formation and ran to this girl that he saw, and now he saw her as a ghost. Okay, that's the other thing, is like he saw her as a ghost, because there's two sides to this story. And he runs up to her, and then finally when he gets to it, she's real. So he picks her up. He sees the house up on the hill. So assuming that that's where she's from, he carries her back, and then she ends up like with the mother. He ends up with the mother carrying the girl, and said that she fell out of the tree. They take him to the sunroom, and that's where the girl wakes up. So, and this is just the synopsis, or the like kind of the layout of the story. And there's a whole bunch of lots of magic that happens in between all of this, especially with the character House, and how she's always having a conversation with the spirit that is the house. And so anyhow, the soldier kind of picks her up and saves her and brings her to the house, and she's okay. And they all start talking, and they're asking questions about the soldier. Ajna sees her grandmother acting weird, and then like, I'm not going to go into the gist of that conversation, but it ends up so like the soldier is like, they thank the soldier, and the soldier's like, well, I got to get back to my regiment. We're heading off to a big battle, and it's it's like it's the Battle of Atlanta is like all of the battles of Atlanta. It's just one of the battles of Atlanta that he's heading off to. So he goes running back, and he goes looking for his regiment, and he starts running up the road. And at this point, crossover happens again, because there was this big crossover, because Ajna is in the 21st century. He's obviously in the Civil War era, and he runs back, and his regiment is all dead. They were massacred. They were ambushed, and all of his soldiers and friends and everybody that he was with were dead. So he's a little bit like, I mean, it's just distraught and despair and all of anything that you can imagine if you're in a war and you're heading off to a war, and all of a sudden you find your entire platoon or regiment that you were a part of marching with, and your friends that you've trained with, your brothers in arms, are all dead. So he doesn't quite know what to do. So he then, at that moment, goes back to the house that he was just at. The only problem is when he goes back, the house has changed, and it's not as big as he remembers it. And it's just, it's a small little 2-story, well-groomed, well-mannered, well-to-do. It's a house that's got a bit of fluency to it. And he walks in, and all of the furniture is different. Everything is changed in the house. He doesn't quite know what's going on. He sees a man there, and then also his wife is there, and they greet him, and he just tells them about like this, and they kind of take him in for that moment because apparently he's in despair, he's in shock, he doesn't know what to do. Everybody knows what's going on, so they start talking to him. The mother, the wife starts, who's a nurse, starts consoling him, and then all of a sudden down comes the steps of a girl, and they make eye contact, and some connection happens, and they ultimately like fall in love with each other. But the way that it really turns out is, and the reason why it's called the family tree, and the story in this tree that she falls off, this tree kind of, the big twist to the story is Ajna's grandmother is this soldier's daughter. Okay? And the person that he goes back, it was a time, it's like a little bit of a time shift thing that happens there where they connect with each other and both kind of help and save each other. So that's kind of like the origin story of Ajna. I'm gonna expect that's just a quick down and dirty of it, but like ultimately, back in real time, Ajna is then told of the story because they didn't want to tell her the story because the family has known about this story, and Ajna's the only one that hasn't. But even so, it's like, so there's one part of it where Ajna has all of these experiences and she sees these things and can talk to the house, and the family can't. But then the family has this whole story that she's not aware to, that then she ultimately, like in this day, this is like her day where I think she's gonna like turns 13 or whatever, or 10. I'm not sure what age is. But that's when she fully comes into the true story of the magic that follows her family. So, and then hence the name, the family tree. So it's that's one of the graphic novels that'll be the origin story of Ajna. Yosef has an origin story. Of course, that is set in the 25th century, and the adventures that the two of them go on because they meet in an alternate dimension. In the Akashic wormhole is where they meet in that library, and they both are pulled in there from their different time periods, and so. And basically, what they ultimately do is the two of them go, and from their two respective time periods, they explore creation stories of that of where we all have come from all of the different walks of life, scientific, spiritual, creative, artistic, like just any source of creation that explores the idea of creation and where we've come from is basically what they're going to explore, which is basically what all of my work is. And then all of the work, all of my paintings become the backdrops for what these characters ultimately explore. So that's kind of where everything is sort of headed. So I'm just kind of and randomly just talking stuff. So, but anyhow, so the one really, really cool thing that I'm really looking forward to illustrate in that story is inside this house, there is a big, huge staircase, which is the main staircase of the house. And it kind of goes up to a landing, turns, and then it comes up to a whole balcony area. And at the landing of the staircase, where there's like a big window seat, there's a big, huge, tall, stained glass window that was created for the staircase. It's on the opposite side of this house. It's on the other side. You can't see it from this angle in this house. But one of the ways that the spirit of the house communicates with Ajna is in the stained glass window. The house tells her the house really doesn't have a gender. Um, the house, but it tends to be a little bit more on the masculine side. Um, the house tells her stories through making the stained glass move, and that's where she sits most of the day. Like she'll sit and have and house will tell her a story about her family, or just what her family is connected to. Um, at least as far as the house has experienced, as a echo of the spirit of 8 generations that have lived in the house of her family. And her family is pre-revolutionary, and they were caught up in the middle of the battles of the Civil War in Atlanta, but luckily their farm and their house was spared, and they were well. It was mostly because of their family magic. Was it their house and their land was able to be protected? So and the family actually has no necessary, you know, connection to the Confederacy. They just happen to be in the Confederacy, and they don't necessarily are caught up in, say, the the wave of the current events, or the zeitgeist of the moment. They exist within a different time flow, that just happen to be passing through that moment in American history. Um, their connection's a little bit wider than it's connected, but not necessarily in a way where it hurts them more because they are both sides. All right, they're not feeling the pain of just one side of the war. They're feeling the pain of both sides of the war, if that makes sense. Because like the hard part about civil wars are those family members that get stuck between the sides, and like a child with two divorcing parents that have irreconcilable differences. Um, as a metaphor, I mean, anyhow, what this brings us all back to, I'm not really even drawing too much, I'm mostly talking today. So I drew that back when I was doing a bunch. It was early 2020, pandemic was just hitting, and I did a project similar to this, but back then where I was working on Saturday and Sunday mornings, and sometimes every morning, where um, I was learning how to do digital painting. I'm an oil painter that, around when the pandemic hit, I was working on a project called Arcane Arena, which involved me learning how to have to digital paint. So I created a series of 15 or 16 pieces that I would do in the morning. I actually was streaming it on Twitch back then, but I don't have those. I sadly don't have those videos anymore. Um, so I don't know. They might still be out there somewhere, but I don't know how to find them because they've been deleted from Twitch, and I did not save them. But anyhow, I'm returning back to that, and this is the scene that I created back then for Ajna's origin story. I'm just kind of bringing it into this because I want to play with it, and I want to kind of take this image now a little bit deeper. I'm blowing this up, and I'm taking this part, and like you can tell that I never really finished the rocks. Everything is still kind of sketchy. I would like to kind of her her hairline doesn't quite match the perspective of the face. Um, I want to clean this up a little bit, so that's kind of what I'm working on this week, and at least just play with it a little bit for the rest of today and into tomorrow, and that's what we do. I mean, what we do. I think I'm just gonna start by defining this tree. I don't quite know where to start. Oh wait, one of the sort of little approaches or techniques that I've found for myself is when I'm working on a piece for the day, and it's not necessarily have a really sense of direction where I want to go with it. I'm coming back to a piece, or if I'm working on a piece and I don't know where to work, um, what I do is I ask myself, where are the areas that need help? Where is the ugliest part of the piece? Um, you know, what needs the most help? And then I start there, and then I pull it up from there. So I guess the rocks are probably like a good area where I want to just kind of define these rocks a little bit. Kind of do some more rocks. Kind of define this a little bit. I don't know what's happening here, so let's. A lot of times I'll take like. I don't necessarily see the edges of something. I see, okay, there's light here, there's dark here for contrast, there's some sort of natural element, rocks, stones, plants, some sort of vegetation happening here. I don't know what it looks like. I can't focus it in my mind just yet, but I know in this area. So I'll just squiggle it. And then the next time I take the squiggle, and that squiggle kind of defines it like I just did a little bit further. Let's undo that. So like this. So like this was just me just really, really fast. Just kind of like, I don't know what's happening here, but it's light here on this side and it's dark on this side, and I move on. Now here I am 4 years later. Okay, I need to define that a little bit more, but I don't quite know what it's going to be. Blah, blah, blah. All right. So now I've got a little bit more of a structure happening there that I'll be able to come in. Let's now take a little bit of light. Let's go back to the pen. Let's put a little bit of, let's put 50. Let's go light on the opacity. Let's make the line a little bit deeper. So then... Alright, so now that I've got this, where is the light coming from? So the light's coming from the upper left, shadows are going to be in the bottom right. So I'm just going to kind of, just really quickly define some of these lines, just defining where the light's coming in. Lights on the left. Lights on the upper left, shadows on the bottom right. And okay. Let's do a little bit more down here. This scene needs to be, this is how we do it. So it's, a lot of it is just kind of getting myself out of my mind and just thinking in terms of light and shadow, and trying to kind of slowly, after layer upon layer upon layer, find where the edges are, and then kind of use that as just like stepping points. Like there's stone on this. See? Just really quickly. You know, defining this. Stone. You know, and I don't put a lot of time into it. You know, it's because I'm trying to get that spontaneity, capture that chaos. You know, that edginess or sketchiness, or just the that vibration that gives you the depth in the atmosphere. Alright, I need to kind of define this edge a little bit better. You haven't noticed these lanterns are the lanterns from Arcane Arena. And I just want to kind of put a little bit of darkness in this back area. Maybe going down a little. So that defines that a little bit. Anyway, this is what we do. I'm going to put a little bit darkness on this tree. Need to go a little bit darker. Darkening up. This needs to go a little bit lighter because I want to put a little bit more shadow on this book. It's too light. What we do is put a little shadow on this book. So you'll be able to see it. Oops. That helps a little bit. All right. A little bit tighter and a little bit sharper. when I put it on different layers. I don't use a lot of tools in Adobe Photoshop. I keep it. I try to keep it as simple as I can. Try to on this hair. This eye isn't quite right, so we can that's probably. I need to move that eye just a little. I need to rotate it a little. Oh, I know. I think I need to squeeze it in. That's better. That's a little bit better angle. The eye. Okay, that is a lot better. Now I gotta fix this eyebrow. This eyebrow. Okay. That is so much better. I mean, it still needs to be cleaned up, but it's better. See, I can now come in with the smudger. Listen. So I'm working on her face. That's currently what I'm working on. Let's take some of this blue. Yeah, so a lot of this is just, I'm just going to be kind of cleaning up until I find a place where I feel like I can push the piece forward. So, um, the book she's reading is, by the way, the Book of the Sun, Sun, and she's slowly going through her family's library. Technically, this is a book that she took out of the Akashic Wormhole library, but I don't quite haven't worked out that connection yet. So, um, I don't write stories linearly. Um, I get scenes in my head, or visions, or a dialogue, or something that's supposed to happen that pushes the story forward. Then it becomes like I call them keyframes, like in animation. They're a keyframe. Like, okay, this happens. How does it link to other parts of other visions that have happened? And how does the story start percolating through all of that? And it slowly reveals itself. Is actually kind of cool. I don't like this up here, so I want to get some. I mean, if you really look at it, like you can tell how fast. Like a lot of this was just digital scribbles. I was just trying to capture the vision as fast as I can, and it's like try not to get caught up in the details because you can lose the ultimate goal of what you're aiming for, and you can always come back and go explore those details later. All right, you want to try to capture as much as the whole picture as you can, so to keep the composition in line, and then you just can kind of go deeper into it as as it draws you in. you know However, from this scale and this resolution, I mean, it looks fine, but then when you zoom in, you know really cool texturing happening here. It's you just got to find your own way to capture your vision. And you need to practice and explore as many different ways as you possibly can to be able to, like, it really, everything is about the vision inside of your head. And being able to get that vision and portray it to your audience or to yourself if you're the audience or in whatever thing that you're creating, it's always about finding the right ways, tools, means, methods, abilities, schedules, workflows to capture that vision that is yours and to be able to capture your voice on the canvas. And a lot of it is learning how to let go of the edge of the pool, how to let go of the sharp edge, the ruler, the compass, the, tablet or whatever. Just let go and just really breathe into your artistic voice and find that. And it takes time. You just got to keep going in that direction. It's like an adventure. You're not going to get to your destination on your first steps on your trip. All right? It took 9 months to get to Mordor. And you find yourself along the way. I think the biggest detriment that we as artists is we don't feel like we can set off on the journey until we have packed all of the things to take with us, which most of the time you don't use most of it. So, you'll find it. That's the honest truth, is the more you peel away, the more you will find your voice. And get comfortable with your voice, get comfortable with your forms of expression. Do whatever it takes to make that expression happen. Within reason, don't let the ego get too much a hold of it. All right? Because the ego will just get you doing shit you don't need to be doing. Just always stay true. What is it that you really, really want to portray? What is it that you're really, really trying to capture? And, are you doing it for yourself? Or are you trying to translate it, warp it, and meld it because of this projected audience that you're trying to talk to? You can do that, but then what really it always comes back down to is, are you saying what you need to say? Are you doing what you need to do? All right? If you blending to the audience is what you want to do, then you do it. But, for most true dedicated, I don't want to say true, just artists that are doing it for themselves are doing it to try to find their real voice inside. And you just got to keep going at it. So, anyhow, it is 9:30. It is time. I hope you all have a beautiful Saturday. I will be back tomorrow, and I'm going to work on this for another hour or two, and then I'm going to continue working on this tomorrow. So I will see you tomorrow morning. Have a great day.